I think technology is so important in the evolution of our business. It's innovating at such a rapid rate that we know things are going to continue to come out, things are going to continue to evolve. And we want to make sure that we can stay at the cutting edge of providing the best resources and solutions for our clients in any line of business that we offer.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Connected Advisor. I'm your host, Kyle Van Pelt, co-founder and CEO of Milemarker. And today I am joined by Jeff Casey. Jeff is the president and partner at CG Financial, and he is also a recent empty nester, which we're going to talk about throughout the episode today. They've built a pretty darn impressive RIA in a couple of different locations across the country with some unique strategies and tactics that I'm excited to talk about today. So Jeff, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So Jeff, I ask everybody this question to start the podcast off because I love to hear it. So what I've found in my time of doing the show and also just being in the industry is that everybody has their own unique path to the industry. Some very traditional, maybe they followed family footsteps. Some people didn't even know this industry existed and they completely fell into it backwards. But either way, whether your path is traditional or untraditional, we found that everybody has what we call a money moment. And that is a moment in your life where something happened and it clicked that you said, this is what I want to do for my job. This is what I want to do for my career. I want to go help people with their financial planning, with their retirement, whatever. So Jeff, for you, what was that money moment that brought you to the space?
Well, Kyle, I wouldn't say it was one specific moment in time. I went to Michigan State University, majored in finance, and like most college students, at least back then, we kind of went through the motions. You learned, you tried to kind of figure out your path, and then you begin the interview process, and you kind of go through and try to determine what really is it I want to do. And I was fortunate in that early on, I kind of decided to go the path of the investment business. And I started with American Express Financial Advisors, where they have a really good training program. I started the licensing process. It was a short period that I was there, but in going through that process, I actually met my now partner, Tony Mazzelli, who at that point became my mentor in the business. He had been in the business already for 5 or 6 years, had success in the business, and I was fortunate enough to get a chance to meet him early on and be able to see some of those successes. He was very open, very accommodative to talking to me about the industry, his experiences, kind of what he saw. It really allowed me to early evaluate the process of what I wanted to do. And my family comes from a blue collar background. My dad was a General Motors employee. My mom worked in a hospital, so I didn't have that entrepreneurial background in my family, but I was exposed to it early on from Tony, and I was always a competitive person, active in sports and like to do things. So that was kind of the point where I knew this is the industry. I really enjoy helping people. I enjoy, the complexities of everyone's different situation. There were just a lot of things that really attracted me to how I evolved my career into where I'm at today.
Yeah. So, all right, with your dad being a GM employee, your mom working at a hospital, what made you choose finance as like kind of your college path or whatever? Were you interested in investments before going to college? Did you just think, hey, this seems like a career where I could make some money, or what was the impetus there?
It's funny. I went into pre-law. I started in Michigan State has a business pre-law program, and I thought about going into law. And at that time, I kind of decided that's a lot of schooling. I'm not sure I want to be in school for that long. And so what I did is I changed, and then I thought I wanted to be an accountant. And I started to learn more about the accounting business because I've always been good with numbers. Numbers has always been a strength of mine. But what really changed the game is I love dealing with people. I love relationships. I like interfacing with people, problem solving. And so it's funny, but my parents kind of let me go down a path I wanted to go. They never talked to me about what I should do, what I shouldn't do. They allowed me to go to the path of my own, and through kind of problem solving, getting to know people and learning about, the different things out there. Finance ultimately is probably because I wasn't smart enough to get into the accounting program that I went down the finance path and was able to get into the Eli Broad College of Business. And then that just led me to starting to deal with people and use my strengths in certain areas to do that. So probably a long-winded answer to what you were asking, but I guess there's no real one clear-cut thing that led me there.
I love it, man. I think that's great. And that's what I mean is everybody's paths are different into this space. I totally feel you on the too much schooling when you were looking at pre-law. Mine wasn't law, but I thought for a while I wanted to be a neurologist. I was really interested in that. That kind of like, struck my brain when I was in high school and found it fascinating. And I could not handle all of the school to become a doctor.
Yep.
So I totally get that, man. So, all right, let's dive in a little bit deeper. So in researching about your organization, I found that you guys undertook a huge project to try and create more visibility across your organization and draw clear lines on accountability. And I think too, you guys are either in the midst of implementing EOS as a firm or Traction as a firm, or you've already done it, but it sounds like all of those are in conjunction. I mean, what prompted that? So you're kind of building this firm, things are growing fast, and all of a sudden you go, we got to draw some clear lines here. We got to get accountability charts set up. We're going to run EOS. Like, talk to us about what was going on with CG to lead to that moment.
Yeah. So, it was probably 5 years or so ago that, our leadership and management team had read the book, What the Heck is EOS? And, myself and Tony have sat on advisory boards, study groups with other advisor firms, just trying to, understand what other, businesses are doing. What are they having success with? What are their challenges? And we heard a lot about this EOS program. And I think at the time, before we really knew the level of business we had, we were kind of operating in separate practices. And there became a time when we said, you know what, there's slight differences, but they're enough to where you get some of these inconsistencies across our staff, across our management. And we kind of looked at that and said, we really need to operate this thing as a business and make sure we're all doing the same things, rowing in the same direction, but at the same time, not losing that independent nature of how we advise clients and the strength of knowing each and every individual relationship. And as a result of that, we kind of started on our own trying to organize in that fashion and learn more about Traction and EOS and those systems. And then it finally came to a point about 18, 19 months ago where we decided, it's time to go. It's time to implement. So probably 6 months prior to that, we started interviewing actual implementers that implement EOS because we felt from prior experience and discussions with people that it was important that we get an outside source to help us implement this the right way, in order to gain traction the quickest and really try to get the business on track for where we needed to go. We felt it was important to do that. So we hired Marissa Smith as our implementer, who's been great. She's out of Ann Arbor, probably. We're all extremely happy to have met her, have her a part of this process. So Tony, my partner, who's the visionary in our business, and I am what they call the integrator. So as president, I do the work to kind of take those ideas and help us. How do we get those implemented throughout the business? And so we just determined that we really needed to be able to give our people across the organization full visibility to where the vision is over the next 10 years, how we break that down into 3 and 1 year segments, really put in place core values that we think are important, not only to our internal people, but how we treat people externally, whether it's vendors, whether it's our clients, whether it's, different referral relationships we have, all these pieces the more and more you see what this system does, we were able to really spend the time on the front end with our leadership team, trying to determine who are the right people in the right seats of that leadership team, and then take that down through the organization and evaluate each and every role within the organization and try to come up with the best fit. So you get the right people in the right seats. Everybody knows where we're trying to go with this, both for the clients that we serve and the health and success of the business. And it's been a great implementation for us. There's still always lots of work to do as you evolve as a company, and having multiple business lines with wealth management and business services and property and casualty. In our advisor network, it's even more challenging because there's a lot of things going on and a lot of people who are working to get all the things done that need to get done.
Absolutely. Well, and that's a great segue because I wanted to ask you next, one of the things that's interesting about CG and why we wanted to bring you on is that you aren't just a financial planning or a wealth management firm, but you have the property and casualty business, you've got the business services side of things. So I want to dive into those a little bit deeper, but just start with, what prompted you to do that? I mean, I'm sure wealth management was kicking along and keeping you busy enough. I mean, why kind of open up these other two lines of business and create the operational overhead and headache?
Yeah, so it was probably about 20 years ago when we started the business services deduction, or division. We were primarily wealth management firm from our inception 25 years ago, and we worked with a lot of small business owners. And as a result of that, there were constant needs in the area of corporate retirement plans, benefits, business consulting. And so when we look at the ideal types of clients that we serve, it was a natural evolution where we had some people coming aboard who started to specialize in that. So one of my other partners, Adam Lesperance, took a real active role in our business services division. And as we worked with those small business clients, it was an evolution where we just continued to focus on making that a part of our deliverable with our wealth management clients. And so that was kind of the business services, which has been, innate in our business the last 20 years. And more recently, obviously, with our property and casualty division, we had some relationships in the business who were referral resources. They had moved around between different agencies. And really, we had been in talks for a period of time about, how do we make this service so it's a value added for our clients, right? We want our clients to have resources at their fingertips, even though we don't help all clients with their fixed insurance or their property and casualty needs. We definitely make it a part of our planning process to review those needs and make sure that the things they are doing, whether with us or without, are meeting their goals and what they're trying to accomplish for their future. And if they don't have a good relationship in that area, we offer that service so they have a place that they can actually get that taken care of for them. So it was a natural fit in the overall evolution of the different services that we were already advising clients on. It's just a matter of now having people with that subject matter expertise that can guide them, that can actually put those strategies in place and do it in a manner where it's in the best interest of the client, right? That's what's first and foremost is, does it fit their plan? Is it important to them? And if so, what are the options they have in order to implement that? And so, knowing all of that, also with our advisor network, there are areas that a lot of those advisor firms don't advise on. And so it gives them a resource to be able to talk to people within our firm, be able to have that resource if they need information or guidance along those areas, or be able to refer and resource that over to the people that can help them the most. So it's been a natural evolution. It's not easy, but at the same time, when you get good people in those areas, you can really see the benefits of how it best serves the client.
Yeah, that's super interesting because I think that makes sense and it kind of fits a little bit. I mean, you've been doing it for a long time, but it fits a trend that we see in the space, which is, for so long people just said they were CFP, said they were fiduciary, said they were fee only, and that was kind of what they used to differentiate themselves. Well, now it feels like that's every RIA or every firm out there. So we're just seeing so many firms try to offer more services for what they can do and create as much of a one-stop shop as they can. But I haven't heard many people doing that with like property and casualty and a couple of other things like that. You hear about all of the estate planning stuff, the tax planning services, and those types of things. Why property and casualty specifically rather than some of these other maybe more, closer tied services that you would see out there?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's funny, but my partner, Tony, his family actually had a backdrop in the property and casualty business. So his dad ran an agency up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan back in the day. And so as Tony and I evolved together, I got to meet his dad firsthand, extremely smart person. So we learned a lot in the risk management and insurance business of not only wealth management, but property and casualty in a number of different areas. And when you have relationships that we've had over the course of time, it's also very important that, we aren't in the business of competing with those relationships that we've had years in and years out. So even though we're in the business and have that division available, we also value a number of the relationships who are also good in that arena and are able to provide those services in the areas they serve, right? So that regardless of if it's an internal person with that subject matter expertise or someone external, to us, the most important thing is that the client's getting that value-added service. And we had done work in the tax business. We had done work in a number of different areas, but we had difficulty with staffing. We had difficulty with finding talent. And it just so happened that property and casualty business was an area that not a lot of advisory firms had relationships, were providing that level of service. we thought it was kind of an area that we could get into that provided that extra value added layer to enhance the value proposition that we provide to clients. And so it's worked out this far, and we continue to evolve that and continue to seek other experts in the industry to make sure we do it the right way and have the right people in place and fill those gaps, if any, as we move forward.
Yeah. Not to belabor this too much, but just out of curiosity, because I do think this is a really unique thing about CG. So do you mostly act as a broker on behalf of, hey, we're going out and we're going to go get you the best deal from the carriers out there, the State Farms, the Progressives, the Travelers, the et cetera? Or is it deeper than that, different than that? Or, how does that look and work operationally?
Yeah. So in the insurance business, contract with carriers is extremely important, right? And we were able to leverage some relationships we had in the industry early on to create some key carrier relationships, but we wanted to maintain our independence. So to your point, right, as clients have needs, there's a lot of different insurance companies out there, really good insurance carriers that specialize in a number of different areas. And so we were able to contract with multiple carriers to continue to provide that independence. And I think because there's so few wealth management firms like ours in the business, the insurance carriers saw it as a big advantage to how they work with wealth management firms as we move forward, because we do the planning on the front end with all those clients. So we have visibility to their overall risk management and how they look at things, whether they're higher on the risk scale, lower on the risk scale, what's the appropriate measure of deductibles and how they manage those different risks that they have from an insurance provider. And so we do all the analysis on the front end and then go to the carrier specific to then shop that for the best options that are available. And we have an internal team that is just working in that insurance business that's solely focused on which carriers do what extremely well, how do they fit well with the different risks and needs that our clients have. And then they're able to basically provide a deliverable that looks at that insurance needs analysis and says, hey, here's some things you should consider. You can implement it with us, or you can continue to work with the relationships you have if those are working well for you and you're getting that similar piece of advice. But we continue to maintain that independence and want to continue to provide it, but make sure that we're with carriers that really are going to solve our clients' needs.
Man, that's really unique and interesting. That's pretty cool. I think there's going to be some people listening to this who can learn from that and go from there.
This podcast is brought to you by Turncast. We make game-changing content for fintech and financial services companies. Learn more at turncast.com.
All right, going a little bit deeper and back into the time machine. So 2009, you guys acquire Network Financial, which, listen, there's lots of acquisitions and everything that are happening in the space. But one thing that we thought was pretty unique, you personally were pretty instrumental in getting that office set up in Charlotte. I think you were traveling down there 5 days a week, to kind of help make sure that was going on. I think what I'm mostly curious about is CG was already in a pretty successful place. You have a family, you have a ton going on. What was it about Charlotte? What was it about that move that was so vital to CG and to what you all were doing that you sacrificed and invested so much personally in kind of making sure that all went really well and went smoothly?
We've always believed in investing in young people. We recruit from universities, local, people coming out of college, others that are young in their careers. We really focused on personal development. And so at the time, we had a lot of young people who wanted to be successful advisors, who wanted to grow within their roles in the business. And as you can probably remember back when we went through the Great Recession, which was that 2007, 8, 9, 10 period, Michigan was one of those front and center areas that was really struggling. And, we felt it firsthand, a very manufacturing based industry historically in Michigan. Michigan was going to have to reinvent itself and really provide a new landscape for growth into the future. And myself and Tony had a lot of dialogue in regards to our growth model, where we were planning to go, how we wanted to grow as we move forward, because, we truly believe that if you're not growing, there's a good chance you're going the other direction. And so at the time we started to look in states that were growing. And it just so happened, you looked in that Southeast corridor down through Virginia and North Carolina and South Carolina, and even down into Florida and Georgia. There was a lot going on from a growth perspective. And we were able to meet some people down through that area, and the opportunity came where we had a couple unique opportunities to do that. And it was natural that we had a few key people that had family and friends down in that area. So we made the decision to make that leap. I had a long talk with my family. It was very difficult on my wife. We had young kids at the time, and she was teaching. So, trying to maintain her career while also spending more time trying to manage the kids with me being on the road so much, but we felt it was important. We had close personal relationships with the people in our business, and we wanted to make it work. And so I took the initiative to spend that time. We worked with Becky Keenan, who was the individual we bought that business from. She was a great resource to us in the area. It was a small business at the time, and it really created an opportunity for us to get a footprint into the North Carolina market. And although I spent a lot of time down there, I built a ton of relationships with the clients and people down there. We've got a great group of people that are working down there now in that office location for us. We've expanded into Wilmington, North Carolina, where we've got another office. So, it allowed us to put some roots in an area that we thought was a good diversifier. It was a great spot that had very similar characteristics and culture to what we know in the Midwest. And so it seemed to be a great fit for us to continue to grow and trying to work towards, the future we wanted to see happen.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, man. I appreciate it. If my count is correct, you have 8 offices now. So when you opened that one, or you acquired that one in Charlotte, was that your first non-headquarter location, or where is that in the story?
Yeah. So the first location we acquired was back in 1999, and that was in Midland, Michigan. So you're aware we have office in Williamston, Michigan. We also have a Hazlet location here in Lansing, but Midland was the first. And then as we moved down, we also had an office in Munising, Michigan, which is up in the UP where my partner Tony's from. And now we have a Marquette location up there. But Charlotte came shortly after, I believe, the Midland and Munising offices.
Okay.
And then shortly after our North Carolina location was our Richmond, Virginia location.
So is the plan to keep expanding by opening new offices and things like that? Is that what's next for CG?
I think the first and foremost objective is to grow in the locations we're in. So both organically and inorganically, if the opportunity presents itself. And then strategically, as we look at other opportunities for new offices, we have a vetted process that we'll go through to identify, does it fit the culture? Does it fit the type of clients we serve? Is it a good fit for our growth model and where we want to go moving forward? And if so, that's definitely something we'll consider. And we also, though, have our affiliate network where in a lot of cases, right, we're able to partner with firms and actually provide services to help them grow and continue to maintain their independence. And we believe, that's kind of an area that strategically, I think there's a opportunity in the marketplace for us to grow at a rapid rate, and it's extremely scalable.
I love it. All right. So one of the things I know you and I connected on relatively early was on some of the stuff CG is doing with technology to kind of push the envelope a little bit. So you have all the core pieces of technology and things like that, but you were pretty early to the idea and concept of doing like a data lake, data warehouse, trying to connect things along those lines. So talk to us about, the innovative nature and kind of characteristic of CG and what you all are thinking about now from an innovation perspective.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. And you guys obviously have been a great resource. I know we talked a little bit about both of us knowing Chip Kispert, one of our tech consultants. But I think early on, what we had identified is we went through a lot of pain anytime we went through transitions in technology. And I think technology is so important in the evolution of our business. And it's innovating at such a rapid rate that we know things are going to continue to come out, things are going to continue to evolve. And we want to make sure that we can stay at the cutting edge of providing the best resources and solutions for our clients in any line of business that we offer. And, as we started to look at how our data is maintained, first and foremost, we knew that we had to make sure that the integrity of our data was good, which means that you're constantly updating and making sure to stay on top of things. And as you know, that's probably the most difficult task for firms and businesses. And I think any business owner listening out there says the same thing, right? Why does my technology not work? It's, and we like to blame the company but the reality of it is you're only as good as the quality of data that you have to be able to provide really good resources and automate and integrate those resources. And so we believe that data warehouse was a way for us to store data securely, be able to organize that data, and have it in a fashion that allows your team to adapt should you decide to change things in the future. Obviously, change is difficult, and our goal is not to change constantly. Our goal is to have a consistency. It's to have good technology and have the resources, because unless there's really a good reason to have it, I think too often we in the past change technologies for not enough reasons to change. And I think as we look at moving forward, I think what we want to do is be able to make a case, if we're going to change, we're doing it for the right reasons. There's an advantage to whether it be our internal or external or any of the affiliates we work with. We want to make sure that there is a true both economic and competitive advantage to why we would make that change. But what's most important is that we secure that data in a place that allows us to adapt if we decide to make that change in the future. And that was probably the biggest reason, because we just felt it was so important that we create an avenue for us to be able to adapt as we need to, but more importantly, get our house in order and do it in a fashion that we believe is a good way for what we want to do moving forward.
Absolutely. Where does that come from? I mean, was it something that happened in the early days where technology kind of hamstrung you and you said, hey, we're just, this is going to be kind of a core principle of ours now? Or is that just kind of who you guys always were?
Another initiative that's been extremely important to us is core process. When you're a small business, right, you do things and you get work done and you have the people to get that work done, and you don't often align the people and the technology and the processes all together so that you'll think of things on how am I going to get the information on the back end to manage the business. And I think we started to get to the point where we understood how important it was to have access to information to manage the business. And we started to see how difficult it was to get that information when your data is not aligned in an organized fashion and you don't have the core processes in place that allow you to report on those metrics in an easy to view way. And so that was the start of it is we saw, okay, data is first most important. Second is we need to define processes and look at these from the top down so that we evaluate those core processes. And then third is we need to look at what do we want to be measuring in this business for our clients, for our advisors, for our staff people. And so it kind of started the evolution of what we've been doing the last 3, 4, 5 years, is really trying to get those things in place so that we can have that information automated and easy at our fingertips to better manage the businesses we serve and the clients we serve moving forward.
Yeah, that's really well stated, man. Really well stated. I appreciate you sharing that. So, all right, let's move on to some of the important stuff. So, what's going on with Michigan State football, Jeff?
Boy, I wish I had the answer to that question. I'm a diehard Spartan. Obviously that's where I went to college. Spent my 4 years there getting a finance degree, but then more importantly, never left. I stayed in the area and obviously been a season ticket holder all these years. Love Spartan athletics. I've always supported those. Even though I supported them, both of my kids decided to go different directions. So I don't have either of my two college students. Neither of them are at Michigan State University. I think it was too close to home for them. But they maintain their love for the university. They maintain the love for their sports. And I'm hopeful now with this new hire, Jonathan Smith, in place, and hopefully they can start to rebuild and get back to, the years we saw when D'Antonio was here and we were seeing a lot of success. So I always try to be optimistic, just like in business, but some days are harder than others. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting because I feel like Michigan State is such a boom bust program. I mean, first of all, one of the better mascots in college football, in my opinion,
Sparty.
But
Yep.
And just 2021, you guys were 11-2. And then all of a sudden it's just like, what's going on? So
Yep.
I had to get your thoughts on that because there's such a program with pedigree, but the results are always so hit and miss. And so,
it's success can come in waves. It's consistency which really separates you, right? Being a Spartan as long as we've had plenty of our ups and downs, but I'll tell you, following a guy like Tom Izzo, who's been with us for over 30 years, and the consistency of the basketball program,
yeah,
that's someone you want to kind of emulate. You can look at things, because he's blue collar. He finds people that fit his culture, that fit his program, that have the talent, right? And we could replicate that like D'Antonio started to do on the football front. I mean, there's just certain people who understand leadership. They understand how to find the right people to fit really the system of what they're trying to do. And sometimes it's hard because athletics has changed so much. I have a daughter that is playing college athletics down in Georgia now. And we're really excited to have her down there. She loves where she's at. She's excited about it moving forward. So we were hopeful she'd find the right fit. But you look at college athletics and so much has changed, and you just hope we can get back to that where it's about that. It's about seeing those kids grow in the programs, have success, right? And all the stuff around them. It's fun to watch those kids grow up, mature, and become young adults and have success just in life outside of athletics on top of in athletics.
Yeah, absolutely. So you took my bait a little bit because I was going to talk about Tom Izzo too and bring all of this back to kind of industry and stuff like that. But I mean, the difference, in success, you can have talent all over the place, right? Everybody recruits great talent, all of that, but it always seems like leadership is what it is. And you've talked about how you've recruited great people and young people and everything like that. I mean, what do you think are the qualities of a great leader, especially when it comes to running, an RIA like CG Financial?
Yeah, it's funny, but my kids growing up, I'm a very competitive person, always been active in sports and I always want to win, right? I mean, it's just one of those things that's innate in my DNA. And I've always told my kids, there's one thing I expect of you. In anything you do, there's only one thing I expect of you. And that's every time you go out, you work hard in everything you do, right? So it always starts to me is, are you willing to work hard? That's number one. And I don't mean, when I say work hard, that doesn't mean work all the time. That means when I'm focused and I am focused on what I'm trying to do day to day to get better at what I do, am I giving it my full effort in what I'm trying to do moving forward, right? Second is, do I have a thirst to get better? Am I going to constantly seek and find ways to get better, be more efficient, right? Find, and it's easier said than done in finding that, right? But sometimes you got to ask difficult questions, really understand, look at what people have done, how they've gone about doing it, and seek, do they fit your culture? They might be hard workers, but maybe they just aren't a good fit for the type of people that you have in your organization. I think every business owner has to look internally at what makes you good, what makes you great, and try to find those same qualities in the people that you're hiring and the people that you're developing, right? And then also understand where are your gaps and where are you falling short? And maybe look internally and say, hey, are we missing on these 2 or 3 things? And do we need to find people and think differently about how we hire people or the types of people we're looking for in the organization? And we've had to evolve with that. It started out in our business, you were looking for salespeople. You were looking to find people that just could come out and they could sell, they could communicate, et cetera. Then you get to where, it's a different look now with technology, right? And all the things that have changed and evolved. We have to start to look at, are they technologically inclined? Do they follow process? Do they do? So needs change, businesses change, but we really take a focus at not only looking at where we've had successes, but also look at how things have changed and evolved and what do we need to do differently. And if you're not constantly revisiting those processes and how you do it, I think you're missing the boat and trying to find the right people that are going to help you get to where you want to go.
Well stated, man. I love it. All right. We've got 2 final segments of the show that I want to run through with you. So the first one is I like to ask people to get out their crystal ball and talk about where they think the future of the RIA industry is going. So Jeff, get your crystal ball out. Tell us where you see the RIA industry going.
Yeah. So it's probably a better question for my partner, Tony, who's the visionary, but I think we talk enough that I can speak to a lot of the discussions, that we've had. And I think this industry continues to consolidate. I think we've seen with private equity having a very heavy hand in the business now, with wirehouses, financial institutions, independent broker dealer networks, we're seeing a ton of consolidation. And so, where we're trying to go is looking at that RIA independent space and finding the strategic partners where you can look at strengths and weaknesses and you can say, you know what, you do these things really well, we do these things really well. How do we find a way to solve the problems, right? Rather than just getting consumed and taking the paycheck and moving on from the business or working for someone else. It's how do we get into that space and figure out and solve those challenges in that middle RIA space and find those strategic partners that really want to do it the same way, have a similar culture fit. They look at client first and they say, hey, I really want to continue to evolve this business. I want to build it for the next generation of people that we've got internally. And we want to see if we can continue to evolve that business. So number one, we maintain our competitiveness because it is reality that with these consolidations, right, they're definitely pushing up the bar in how this business services clients, the deliverable that's expected, the tech stack that's available to those firms and how they deliver it to the client. And so it's extremely important for firms like ours that we find those ways to keep that competitive advantage, maintain our scale, but also find the right people who are like-minded and want to go the same direction and continue to grow that business and create it for the next generation of people that work with us. So we think there's a space there, that there's a void that's missing, that there's an opportunity there to do that. And, we've had discussions and continue to talk to those peers and people who have that same mindset to try to find our way and continue to maintain that and grow our business in the right way, the way we feel, we want to be able to see it in the next 10 to 15 years.
Awesome. All right, we're going to move into the final segment of the show, which is what we call the Milemarker Minute. It's kind of a series of lightning round questions, fun, more lighthearted stuff that get to know Jeff a little bit more behind the RIA leader. So are you ready for the Milemarker Minute?
I'm ready.
Okay. My first question for you. We've talked about sports quite a bit in this podcast episode. If you had to rank the big four sports, so football, baseball, basketball, and hockey, how would you rank them 1 to 4? 1 being your favorite, 4 being your least favorite.
Well, basketball has always been my love at number 1. I would put football as number 2. I would put hockey as number 3. And then I'd put soccer as number 4, just because I've got a daughter. I'd probably move it up to number 1, but having a daughter in the sport, soccer's become really my love and passion at this stage.
That's awesome. Good answer. If you could travel anywhere in the world that you've never traveled to before, where would you pick?
Boy, my wife and I were just talking about, wouldn't it be cool to go to a place like Bora Bora? So halfway across the world, but we'll see if it takes us there at some point in the future.
Yeah, as you become an empty nester, man, trips to Bora Bora probably become more realistic, right? Yep. Yeah, that's great. What is the best book that you have read in the last 12 calendar months?
So I'll just put Traction high on the list. I mean, I've read it multiple times. I think that's a book that, as we talk about the EOS system and a process we've gone through, I'm going to put that one at the top of my list.
Why is Upper Peninsula, Michigan so underrated?
I don't think people understand the beauty of the Great Lakes and the outdoors and what the Upper Peninsula provides. I've spent, so much time up in those parts, and it is by far one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Yeah, I continue to hear that. I still need to go, and that's high on my list. I think, people just don't chalk it up, and everybody thinks about going to the beach or whatever, right? But I have heard from countless people that the Upper Peninsula is nothing to sleep on, and that Michigan's not always covered with snow. I think a lot of people think too, the higher up you go in Michigan, it's just going to be cold and snowy all the time, right?
You got it.
That's awesome, Jeff. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really loved the conversation. I love the conversation about EOS and everything that you're doing there, about your commitment to bringing along people, what you had to do to get those offices opened, sharing your insights on the future of the industry, and of course, Michigan State football and basketball. Much appreciated. I really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. I really appreciate you having me on. It was a pleasure getting to spend some time with you today.
Likewise. All right, everybody, that has been another episode of The Connected Advisor. Please make sure to click follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to this so that you don't miss the next one of these episodes. And if you'd be kind enough to leave us a review wherever you're listening to this, that would be fantastic as well. Until the next one, have a great week.